Welcome to the Market Mystics podcast. I'm Joshua.
I'm Kim. Let's dive in. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Market Mystics. We're so glad you're here.
We are always glad to have the listeners with us all the time, and we're always grateful for their comments because they're usually pretty amazing.
That is true. You know, I think we've talked about this before. We have one person in particular whom we have been able to connect with personally, who leaves the best comments, like so insightful, really makes me feel like we're journeying together. And I'm just so grateful for that. So if you also want to share your journey, we love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
We certainly do. So Kim, I have a question for you. I was watching some little shorts earlier and I saw these people having this
like
conversation.
Daisy Dukes shorts?
No, I was going to say like YouTube shorts. But I saw these people having this conversation about a question and I was like, oh, that's a really intriguing question. So it's pretty playful. It's not serious, but I'm curious what your answer would be to it.
Okay.
If you could learn a language instantly, but you had to lose one of your fingers, would you do it? And what language would you learn?
I think the better question is, which finger would you lose?
You get a pick.
Dang it. I don't think so. I feel like my body was made in a certain way that I'm complete. And I don't think I want to give up any limbs or appendages.
I think that's a fair response. I think I could obviously people have done it. You can live without most of your fingers. You can live without all of them.
Right.
But it does change your quality of life. But what I thought was interesting was the host who I saw having this conversation was like, they were willing to give up multiple fingers to learn multiple languages. And I was like, wow, that's so intriguing. I could maybe see it like if you lived somewhere that was very diverse and there was like another very common language spoken. Like I could totally see that. Like if you lived in South Texas or in South California or something like that, like I could really see Spanish being super helpful to be like instantly fluent in. But I think there would have to be like purpose in it for me. Like I would be like, okay, I'm getting ready to move to this country. Would I give up a pinky for instant fluency? Like maybe I would consider it at that point.
Really? That I was curious about your answer.
Yeah. I think in the moment, like I actually really love just like language in general. And I have like a 970-day streak on Duolingo right now. So I'm pretty proud of that. But
that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. So I love languages, and I've like the interesting thing with it is I have not like set with one of the languages long enough to be fluent because I love just bouncing between different ones. So I've probably like on that app gone through 6 different languages and like gone through like the rudimentary levels of it just because I really enjoy like learning the little pieces of other languages.
That's fun. Is Afrikaans on it?
It's not. If it was, I probably would have only stuck with that. But it is not currently an option on there.
Yeah, you can shout out to all of our South Africa people.
I know. I thought about like going through some of the Dutch and other things because Afrikaans is a derivative of that, but they're not similar enough. Like there's some similar words, but it's not similar enough that you would understand the other language. So not worth it.
Well, that's interesting. I'm just like, I'm fine with my body. Thank you.
I think that's
I would like to keep my fingers.
That's probably a good place to be. I mean, the more connected you are with your body, the more like I think that becomes like a harder question to ask. Like if you're shut down and disconnected from your body, it's a lot easier to be like, oh yeah, cut that off. I don't care.
That's probably true.
Well, before we started recording, we were having this conversation about like, well, we were talking about Jim Carrey. We were talking about New Age and just some of the terminology used around that. And sort of like one of the things we started talking about was how many of the people who have experienced, I don't know, enlightenment, or they have encountered their creator outside of the church tend to be hesitant to call themselves Christian because of what that word has meant to them, what their experience has been with that word. And then you have some people like Russell Brand, who for years sat on the fringe and finally was like, oh wait, I think this is what I've been experiencing all the time. I'm ready to own it, and I'm ready to own the backlash of people who attack me for it. I think Kat Von D is another person who would fit into that camp as well. I'm sure there's many, many others. But it's just kind of an interesting thing because we get lost in the language of it sometimes. And we're like, well, that language doesn't sound like my language, even though we might be talking about the same thing. And in some way, we're cutting off part of our body by not allowing those people to encounter the same creator using a different language.
This is so true, Josh. You know what it makes me think of? You know, those cards that I think you might have and I think I might have. I actually don't know where they are. It's like the however many 72. I was going to say 27. I just got them flipped. 72 names of God that are in the Bible, right? But what if in the Bible and with all of those different people and everyone coming up with, or these 72 different ways of saying who they're talking about, what if people decided, oh, that's not my God, I'm not, obviously you're wrong, and then just had nothing to do with them anymore, like shut them out for it, instead of being like, oh, look, there's another facet of the same God that we serve.
Yeah.
You know? But then I think about, we as Christians, we sometimes sit here and think that we know the entirety of him and that he would never expose himself in a different way to someone else. Well, that's not the God I know, so it must be something else.
Right.
But what if it isn't? Like, what if we're being the short-sighted people? What if we're not willing to look beyond our own nose for our creator who is all and in all?
Yeah. I mean, it can be, I see where the challenge comes because you have this experience with humans where if you experience them one way, that's probably how they are. And so if someone else is like, well, I had this experience with them and it's totally different, then your mind kind of goes, well, which one of us didn't get the real them? But we try and put God in that same box, like the one who created all the different variations. We try and put in the same box as one variation. And I get how that would be our natural go-to because pattern recognition is how we survive as humans. But it's a dangerous place to put a creator who made everything we experience. And I think the other part of this like language conversation that is important is I heard this theory that when you give up language, you lose the function of the language you gave up. So let's just say as a Christian, you really got, you encountered someone who taught meditation in a way you didn't like it. And so you said, well, I'm not going to participate in meditation. You lose that whole piece when you give up that word. And so even though the Bible may say to meditate on the word daily, or the Bible, like I think it's used like 20 times in the Bible, like you may lose that facet of connecting with God because of an experience that you had with someone who was trying to work out the same process you're trying to work out, even though it might have looked different. But I think it expands like further to that. Like you and I were having a conversation about like really being hesitant to call ourselves Christian because of the road we've walked and seeing how that word what that word means in most people's consciousness. Like what it triggers when you say that word. To some people can be super offensive, to some people not at all. Like it carries a different meaning. But we talked about how like we went through one point where it was like, I don't even know if I want to call myself that. And now I sort of sit in a spot where I'm like, no, I don't want to give all that up. Like I actually want to just demonstrate to you a different way of walking out that word, of living that word. That's my desire for people in this, is to not just give up on things, not cut it out. Like I've heard people use this in the like fivefold conversation. And it makes me think of like the conversation we had with Gil Hodges the last time he was on the show, where he ended it with like, he was talking about the fivefold and talking about how many people in the mystical community point to the part that says you need these things until you reach the fullness. And so they're like, well, we're going for the fullness, and so we don't need any of those. But it actually says you need them until you get to the fullness. And so you need them right now, because I don't know that anybody is in the fullness at the moment. And so by saying, well, I'm just going to bypass to the end, you are giving up the form and function of all of those 5 offices in your life, and for those to have any influence in your life. But if that's what you need to get you to the fullness, then you're never going to get to the fullness. And so I just think it can be like, I think language is so important because language forms your reality. And that, like, I don't want to give up on language. I don't want to give up on terms that have at one point been offensive or I've had a bad experience with. Like, I want to like fight for those to like actually be represented in like the way I want to represent them. Like, I want to change how the world sees those words.
Yeah, it's like untwisting them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I think about, so back to some of the new age language. I'm giving quote fingers. You just can't see it in the camera. The new age language. I think about, there's so many people who will reference, oh, the universe this and the universe that. And I was pretty not for that for quite a while, because of the connotations of, oh, this is something that is a counterfeit or whatever. And I was reading a book. It was The Alchemist, by Paulo Coelho. I don't even know. I probably didn't say his name right. I'm a reader. I'm not a pronouncer. But I loved the book. It was an easy read, but in it was referenced a few times. Like, he started hearing the language of the universe. And I will tell you that spoke to me in a way I never thought it could. Mm-hmm. Because when I read that and what he was going through in that journey, I was like, me too. I hear that language too. And it's not, I will tell you, I'm also someone who I don't know, maybe I'll say this. I pride myself in discernment. Like I really check things with the Lord. I'm constantly checking, like, is there truth in this? Is there truth in this? Is this you? Is this you? Is there truth in this? Is there truth in this? And I will tell you that rang true for me. And it surprised me a bit because it was this language that felt very new agey because it was, the language of the universe, except that it wasn't. It was deeper than that. And it was truth. And it really made me start thinking about some of this that we're talking about today. And what really is lying in that language. And if maybe, just like we've talked about the mountain over and over again, right? You go up the mountain and sometimes you have to shed some stuff off that isn't serving you well until you reach like this oneness and where you can really get the wholeness, the fullness. And then you start coming back down the mountain and sometimes you can pick those things back up. And I think this is one of those things. Sometimes language is like this, or it has been in my life at least. And it sounds like it has been in yours too. But I hear people talk about some of this stuff. Like Jim Carrey was what sparked this conversation. I was saying, I would really love to have a conversation with him. I have seen some clips of some interviews or talks that he's done about his spiritual awakening. And he uses language of like the universe. But when he's talking about it, I see the creator that we know and that we would call God or Yahweh or Father or one of those 72 names that we have for him. And I can't help but think he's encountered the same God that we've encountered. He just may not know him by the same name.
Yeah.
Maybe he does. And maybe he's just not using that language in the talk that he's giving because he doesn't want to make it polarized. Because maybe God is bigger than just the labels we put on him. And I think it's kind of really fair to think that. I'm afraid I'm going to get some backlash on that, but I'm in this place, Josh. I'm in this place where I want to stop trying to limit who he is and stop thinking that I can determine what his bounds are. Like, how far will he go? Will he go far enough that he gets referred to as the universe? No way. Absolutely not. You think that really makes that truth? I think that just, I don't know. I think it limits me then. It limits how much I can know him. And, we talk about this often. And I think this is really relevant to language where we try to look for him in everything, in all of creation, right? Can I see him in another person? Can I see him in the trees? Can I feel him in the wind that blows? Can I experience him when the rain is falling? Like all of these different things, right? But I don't want to then limit it. Well, but only Christians can do that. Only I have that privilege. Like, I actually think he's revealing himself all the time to all of his creation. And I just don't want to try to limit it or pretend like I can't limit it.
Right. Yeah. Pretend like you can limit it. When we were talking about, a while ago, we were talking about life and I was like, I just think life is good and it's just getting better and getting better and getting better. Like that's just the only option. I feel like God is revealing himself and he will continue to reveal himself and he will continue to reveal himself. And that is the only option. And he will continue to do it to anyone who looks. I mean, like the verse just says, seek and you'll find, knock and it'll be opened. Like, you may not even know what door you're knocking on, but you're going to meet the creator of the universe, and it will fundamentally change your life.
That's all.
It's pretty simple. Just keep looking. I think we've done an episode called like Keep Knocking or something like that. Like, I feel like
Ask, seek, knock or something.
Yeah, something like that. Because it is just like, it's a really simple recipe, but we make it kind of complicated. But really all he asks you to do is be curious. Like, be a child, be curious, look, find out. If you go the wrong way and you find yourself in a very unjust situation, he'll be there to guide you out of it, and you can find a different situation. It doesn't have to be devastating.
Yeah. I think we did talk about this recently too. So I think Ask, Seek, Knock was a while ago. I think we called it The Seeker, maybe. That was recently.
We've done several on this general topic.
Yeah, but I do tend to think that, I mean, as mystics, I mean, those are quote fingers too. Christian mystics, the only reason we would call ourselves mystics is because we're seeking the mysteries. We're seeking. We're just looking for the things that we don't know yet.
Yeah.
You know, we're seeking God to reveal himself in all the ways that he wants to reveal himself. That's it. I mean, it really is simple.
Yeah. It really is.
I don't know that is limited to just the Christian club. I don't think it is. I think he actually really wants to know or to have the heart of all of his creation. And I think he'll get there however he can.
Right.
Yeah. So whether it's this language or that language, I'm going to look for him in it. And if I see him, I'm not going to doubt it. And
the great part is, you don't have to cut an appendage off to learn the language.
You don't have to lose a pinky for this one.
That's right. You just have to be curious.
That's true. This was good, Josh. Good transition with the pinky question too.
You know what's wild? When I told you, hey, I have a icebreaker question to start, I did not think about how it connected together. I literally literally just thought of a video I saw like right before we started recording. I was like, oh, that's a cool question. And then it tied in perfectly to what we were going to talk about.
God is good.
Just living in the flow.
I love it. Okay. Thank you guys for joining us today. Let us know if you would want to learn a language immediately and lose an appendage, or don't. But maybe also let us know if you've found any language barriers, like in the Christian language and the spiritual language and the faith languages that are out there. What have you experienced with that? I would really be curious to know.
So good. All right.
Also, if you know how to get a hold of Jim Carrey so we can have him on the show, let us know.
Yeah, that'd be a great conversation. We'd love to have it.
Right. Okay.
Amazing.
Thank you, guys.
See ya.
Hey, thanks for listening. Keep up with us along this journey by liking, subscribing, and becoming a member through YouTube.
Members get exclusive access to bonus content with our guests, deeper dives into topics, and a look into other projects. We're glad to have you here. See you next time.